Hello and a very warm welcome to all the viewers of Detox, that is Disruptive Literacy Talks. And this is Tanmay Prakash, your host of the session. Detox aims at coming together in eradicating illiteracy and focusing upon the foundational literacy and numeracy as committed under Sustainable Development Goal 4 and in India's national education policy as well. Detox is an initiative of Global Dream, a disruptive movement for universal foundational literacy and numeracy. It was launched in 2014 by Dr. Sunita Gandhi, educationist and former economist at the World Bank. By using disruptive research based methods and processes, Global Dream aims at making India 100% literate in a time bound mission. Moreover, we believe in disrupting the status quo when best is not the enough. Moving on to today's session. Today we have a speaker who has more than 10 plus years of teaching experience. Ms. Loris Rodriguez, PYP Literacy Coordinator, who will be speaking upon the topic Creating a World of Readers and Writers. Ms. Loris has teaching experience as an IB PYP homeroom teacher. She is now qualified as NEASC accreditation school visitor and has also assumed the position of literacy specialist for last 2 years. She has always believed in the practices that a student-centered learning and teacher environment, but with her exposure to PYP curriculum and project-based learning, she has refined her teaching practices. Her classroom now reflects a maker-centered learning and teacher environment where teaching and learning is inquiry and service-driven. She is currently working at Srinidhi International School, Hyderabad, India, and as a PYP4 homeroom teacher and literacy specialist. We at Detox are glad to have Ms. Loris with us. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to Detox.
Thank you, Tanmay. Thank you very much. I am very honored to be here.
So
And
today, after reading about you, there was so much about you on about your work and your experiences that you might have noticed that I was fumbling about before reading it. I'm really impressed, and I just want to know that like you have a 10 plus years of teaching experience. So when did you decided that you would be going into the teaching and the education sector?
um, it started when I volunteered in church with children. And from there, I just knew that teaching or taking care of children or being with children actually comes very naturally to me. And so I just continued volunteering in schools, and then finally I knew that this is my calling. Like I was called to teach, just because it's just comes so naturally to me. So that's how I ended here.
Yeah, you have a very great journey. And we would like to start the session. I think you have a presentation with you. So we would like to start the session with the presentation. And moving on, we'll be having a small question answer round and we will be discussing about our works and what is our experiences.
Yes, sure. Let's do that. Let's get started.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So again, I just wanted to say thank you for this wonderful opportunity to share my experiences. I am not an expert. I am still, continuously learning and trying to apply whatever it is that I feel like will work in the field of primary education. I would say that I have done a lot of research and also application when it comes to reading and writing. And so this is where I am right now. So a little bit more about me, and I know that Tanmay has already presented such a wonderful introduction about me, but also I have taught grades 1, 2, 3, and 4. I also have my own two children. My daughter is age 10 and my son is 8-year-old, and they're both homeschooled. So we started homeschooling my son last year. when we went on lockdown. And so we decided that this year we are going to homeschool both of them. And so a lot of the things that I practice and apply in the classroom, I've already applied or tried it at home. And so I know the challenges and what works and what doesn't really work and the ways we can tweak it so that we can serve children better. My children also really see me devote time in reading and writing. So this is part of my daily life. And so they can see that, this is what mommy does and this is something I'm passionate about. And so to start my session, I would like to share with you two statements that I find untrue. So one is that we need to go to school to learn and we need a lot of money to learn. So I find these two statements untrue. If we don't need to go to school to learn, and if we don't need a lot of money to learn, then how can we develop readers and writers at home? And so, my presentation, I will share with you 5 ways to develop readers and writers. And as we go through the session, you will see that I color coded the 5 ways so that it's easy to follow. And I will go through these 5 ways now. All right, so here's way one. Learning starts at home. So that means reading and writing starts at home too. And so to explain this a little further, which is the letter A part, I would like to quote Miss Savida Tiagi. She is one of the speakers here in Detox, and she's one of the favorite talks that I watched during the sessions. And it was very insightful and very important what she shared. And she said that at home, you can use different materials that are there to teach writing, your ABCs, or eventually that could lead to reading. They suggested, her organization suggested that they can use flour. And then the parents got a little bit more creative and they started using lentils. And then it could be stems of vegetables when you're cooking in the kitchen, sticks, stones, rocks. It's basically whatever it is that you can find at home. And write your ABCs or write words, short words that doesn't require paper or pen. Okay, so one is looking for materials that you can use at home for teaching ABCs, or eventually will lead to reading words. The second thing is play. So play is like the easiest and the cheapest way to teach literacy skills. So when you watch a child play, they do a lot of role play, and they also try to figure things out, what fits, what doesn't fit. They experiment, they solve problems, and if they are playing with someone, they also learn how to solve conflict. And through play, children learn speaking skills, presentation skills. They learn to listen. Eventually, when they are playing with someone, they would have to negotiate and they would have to present their ideas, to convince their friend, for example, to swap toys or to spend the night over, come to my house. And so this speaking, listening, and presentation skills, these are all literacy skills too, that can be developed in play. Um, and then the next bit that I'm going to share will focus more about reading at home. And so I just want to reiterate that reading and writing are part of our daily lives. This is something that we need to keep saying and something that we also need to model. So reading at home. So how do we do this? Okay. So one thing that I discovered during the lockdown is that video games or gaming could actually develop reading and writing. And I saw my son develop his reading skills because he has to read instructions on the games. The game would tell you where to go next or what to get next so that you will win, and where to go, what to do, what do you need to get next. So he has to read. So it's like almost by force, he taught himself to read the instructions so that he could win. And then on those games, there's also a chat box. And so he's also reading those chat boxes, that kind of like guides everyone what to do. And then he also starts replying to that. And so now you see the reading and writing at play in video games. Okay. And then another one is text messages. So my daughter, she created a WhatsApp group for our family. And because my son wants to join in and he wants to be part of the conversation, he wants to know what we're talking about. Again, this is another way that he kind of forced himself to really read the words so that he knows what we're talking about. And then eventually he started texting back. And so the writing happened, that way too. Okay? Reading opportunities at home could also be the ingredients at at the back of packets. Tomato ketchup, mayonnaise, I don't know, like soy sauce, whatever you have at home, and you flip it um, on the other side, and they're like list of ingredients. And sometimes it even gives you ideas of how you can use it in different recipes. So I remember my daughter when she was smaller and she would wait for us in the kitchen while we're cooking. She would look at those packets and she would try to pronounce, the words that she find in those packets. There are also instructions on those toys that they buy. So most of those toys that they would have pictures, but sometimes my children, they will not understand what to do with it. And so I would encourage them and I would say, well, what did it say? What does the instruction say? And so again, it's like by force, they're trying to sound it out, the words, they're trying to read it because they are very motivated. They wanted to know how to put the toy together or how to use it. Cereal boxes. So one thing that I remember from my childhood, when we are eating breakfast, we would put the cereal box in front while we're eating. And I'm so busy reading everything at the back of that cereal box, right? And so I'm basically giving different ways that we can provide opportunities to read, and they are right at home. When watching TV, put on the subtitles. So my daughter learned, she basically developed her reading skills also through the subtitles. And another thing that happened with the subtitles is that she kind of have to read fast because she has to catch up to the subtitles. And so now she's not reading word per word. She started reading in sentences. So that's how she developed that. I mean, it helped develop. That's not the only way to do it, but it helped, these little things that I'm presenting right now. Read advertisements on newspapers, on magazines, posters on the wall that we see, some random, paper that you see while you're walking on the street, billboards, different signs, these are opportunities to read. So those are advertisements. If there's access to emails, read the emails. And one of my favorite things to do is leave notes around the house. So they don't have to be long notes, right? They could just be, hey, have a great day. Oh, don't forget to pick up your socks. Put your shoes in the proper place. Things like this, that my children can see all around the house. And then they start reading it. And then, of course, eventually they would want to reply. And so the next thing that I'm going to talk about is focusing on writing at home. So now you have all of these reading opportunities. Now we'll look at writing opportunities. So again, writing is a part of their daily lives. And this is because we usually have the urge to reply. We want to reply to notes that are left around the house. We tend to reply to text messages, especially if it's coming from our friends or from our family. And like from my example, the game, my son wanted to participate. He wanted to share his ideas too. If you have a calendar at home, get the calendar, write birthdays, special occasions, holidays on those calendars. So now you are starting to write. And, these are things that you write that are meaningful to you, and it has relevance to you. So it's not by force that you're writing. It's just a beginning to write. And one of the things that is most effective, and I still have right now, is keep a writing journal or a diary. Your diary or your journal doesn't have to be fancy, but it's basically a piece of, like a notebook. It could be a used notebook that still have some empty pages or blank pages. And every day, make a point to write something on it. And so you are developing that writing every single day, even if you spend 5 minutes talking about your day, or if you see something and that sparked an idea and you write it down. So these are opportunities for writing. So keep that with you. And my recommendation really is to write on it every single day, even just for 5 minutes. And it doesn't have to be perfect. it doesn't have to be paragraphs, just something to, practice your writing. All right, finally, way two. Reading and writing go hand in hand. So we need to remember this. We read and write to communicate. Although reading and writing are very distinct, they're actually very connected. And so I'm going to explain how they are very connected. So when you are reading, you are exposed to different characters, to different situations, different settings, and they are both real or imaginary. You are exposed to a lot of ideas and a lot of different personalities, right? And while you are reading, sometimes you find yourself saying, hey, that happened to me too. Hey, wait a minute, I know how that feels. I know what you mean. Oh, yes, I've done that too. I've done that mistake. And so the moment we made that connection to what we are reading, that is now a way of communication. We have now made a connection to either the character or to the author or to the situation. And sometimes when we find this, moments where like, yeah, that happened to me too. Oh, I know what to do. We get this urge that I want to reply. I want to tell this woman, don't do that. If only this character can hear me. This is what I wanted to say. So now you are having this almost like a conversation with someone in the book. And if you have a journal, you can start jotting down these ideas. And really, we don't realize we're doing it, but we're actually starting to pick audiences for our writing. And so what I noticed for myself is that I am very drawn to stories about mothers. Mothers who struggles to find balance, just very tired mothers who feel guilty. So I'm always reading their stories, and then I realize that these are actually my audience. And so if I'm writing in my journal, I could see that a lot of my writing is a reply to, or a plea to the mothers who are feeling this way. And also, you see how when you're reading more, you're actually finding that connection with the world and, who you want to reach out to and you want to communicate with. And so by the time you have your journal, you have this one idea. I am going to reply to mothers who are struggling with balance in their lives. You are now building more and more ideas of what else? What else can I talk about being a parent or being a mother or being a sister, being a father, being a teacher? We find these audiences, what else can I talk about? So we keep building that ideas until finally you've actually written pages and pages of discussions, essays, perhaps, that you can just edit, right? So, that's what I'm working on right now. So, and then here at the last is that the more you read, the more you notice the different writing styles of an author that you admire or you want to copy. And so, if you are at that point of leveling up your writing, the more you read, the more you understand, okay, so this is a style and this is my style. And I gave an example with myself here. And one style of writing that I really like is kind of like that. It's a very poetic. My favorite author is Murakami and Max Lucado. And so if you read the writing, they're very poetic. And so I like that kind of writing style. All right, way three, the power of the daily five. So the daily five is a strategy that we use during literacy class in many of the schools that I've been. And of course, this is very applicable at home too. So the five components of the daily five is one, buddy reading. So you get a partner or you get a buddy and you read with your buddy. And this could be both for adults and for children. Okay, so for children, I've seen this happen in two ways. One, you can get a group of children of the same age, and then they pick a book, they pick a partner, and then they just read the book together. If the children are not yet ready to read, they can just do picture reading. And with picture reading alone, there's a lot of reading skills that they can develop from there. So they can predict what's going to happen. They start talking about the character. So we have character description. And then the other way is that if an older age child partners with a younger one, so for example, a grade 5 class will go to a grade 1 class, grade 4, grade 3, they pick a buddy, they pick a book, they read together, yeah, during that time. And so what's happening basically is that they are learning from each other. You know, they get ideas from each other. If they are the same group, they're also helping each other how to read certain words that they don't know. And of course, it's an extra boost of confidence for the older kids that, oh, yeah, I am reading to a younger kid. And so that's something that I noticed that they can do. And what we can do in rural areas and anywhere, in fact, we can create small groups, like families, small families together, partner the kids around. And if it is possible to have this as a routine, create like a schedule, a timetable where, okay, so every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're going to sit together, we're going to read. If this becomes a routine, this is one of the effective ways to develop reading for younger, older, even adults. And for adults, we do have book clubs for adults. So that's something that we can do. Another component is read to self or independent reading. So, and this is easy. This is where I say, do not teach it, do it. And so in my own classroom, I always have a book. We always spend about, 20 minutes a day getting a book and just sitting there and reading it. And so we would start with like 15 minutes, and then it builds on to 20, 25, 30 minutes until eventually we don't even realize that we have been reading for 45 minutes nonstop. And so we are building this reading stamina. And, eventually these children, they would come to me and say, so, Miss, how do you read this? What does this mean? So in a way, you are teaching, but not really teaching. You have given them an opportunity to read and just enjoy a good book. The next component is listen to reading. And this is one of my favorite things. Reading aloud to children has always been a favorite of mine. And so reading aloud, you get a lot of interaction. You're teaching a lot of reading skills of comprehension, discussions, character analysis, the situation analysis in when you're doing read aloud. So listening to reading is another component. Writing in my school, in a lot of the schools that I have worked in, what I used to do is have a free writing session during writing time. So free writing session is basically unstructured. And we just allow the children to write whatever they want to write. If they want to write a story, if they want to write a poem, if they want to write a song, it's basically their time to just get creative, and then they just write whatever it is that they are interested in. So free writing is another very effective way that I saw children develop their writings, just because it's unstructured and they know that it doesn't have to be perfect and it's just all coming out naturally from them. The last one is word work. This is basically building vocabulary, building spellings, and this is more particularly, if you want to create, you would need more materials for this. So I haven't really thought about something that you can do at home, but the very basic one is list the words that you find that you don't understand when you're reading. And then we can look it up, we can ask someone what it means. So these are the daily 5 components that could be transferred at home. This is one of my favorite quotes, and I think it's really relevant when we are talking about reading and writing. So it says here, just write every day of your life. Read intensely, then see what happens. So this is by Ray Bradbury. So it's basically talking about read every day and write every day. Write on calendars, write on your journal, leave little notes, text message. So be very intentional to write and to read every day. So that really helps. All right, way 4. Teaching and learning mindset. So this is now the kinds of things that's going on in our minds when we are talking about literacy or when we are talking about reading and writing. So the first thing on my list that I would like to suggest is to stop teaching and interact instead. So when we are teaching, we are imparting a lot of our own knowledge and our own strategies to children. And they actually need to just discover things on their own and find out for themselves. One example of this is a book. We usually would say, you know what, read this book. because this good is book for you, and you should read this, and this is your level, and all of that, right? So instead of saying that, of imparting that knowledge to them, let them discover, let them pick a book, and then let them discover that, well, actually, this is too hard to read. Or, Miss, this is actually too easy to read. Can I get another book? And so now they discover for themselves that what their capabilities are, and how they can get better at it. And so let's do just a lot of interaction with them. And we can always also ask questions like, if they ask you a question and they want to find out something, then say, well, what do you think? Let's talk about that. Why did you say that? Ask them, what do you want to know? What are your questions? And then say, well, what are the different ways that we can find the answer to that? Let's go and find people that are probably more knowledgeable. Let's see what we can find out. So now there's just a lot of this inquiry based, and the children just taking their learning in their own hands. And sometimes all you need is really to have a conversation with your learners or with children. And we do this a lot. My husband and I do this a lot with our children. We just engage them in conversation. If they ask us, Mommy, why did the Egyptian used to wrap, the dead bodies in tissue? And then we start having that conversation with them, and we're talking about history, we're talking about languages. So you don't need a book sometimes, you don't need a workbook. You just need a couple of rough sheets to show them a timeline, draw. So, these are like easy ways to just teach children, or for them to learn. If you shall teach this, that we read and write to communicate. This is not a subject, it's not some subject that we need to pass. This is something that is useful to our daily lives. We read and we write because we are communicating all the time. And again, model this, show your learner, show the children at home that I am writing, I am writing the budget. I am writing what's going to happen tomorrow. I am making a schedule. I am making a list. I am reading what I need to do today. These are all opportunities for reading and writing. Letter C, if you shall teach how making mistakes is okay. And if you all noticed, I made HOW, how, all in big letters. And this is because you have to show them that, oops, I made a mistake in my writing. Let me just cross that out. And I think something better is there. And then you just write again. And so a lot of my students and my own children, they see me do this. You can see scratches on my journal, and I'm just saying, this is not correct. Let's just start all over. Let me try again, right? Play is the best way to learn. It is the best way to teach without teaching. And because you're, in a lot of ways, you're interacting with them, you're having a conversation with them. In schools, we need to stop the competition. Okay, learning is not a competition. We need to stop saying, all right, the first student to finish reading, or the first student to finish writing, or the last one to finish is, or the fastest reader, or the student who read the most number of pages. It's not a competition. It is not the first one to finish writing. It is not the first one to finish reading. It's not, yeah, so it's not that we don't acknowledge them. We acknowledge their successes by telling that, oh, you read 2 more pages today than yesterday. Oh, you read more chapters today than yesterday. That's a great job. Can you try reading 1 more chapter next time? Right? And then for those who can produce 3 sentences, we'll say, well, is there anything we can add? Can we add 2 more sentences? And then now we have a paragraph, right? So we are now talking about feedback. You give them feedback and then guide them into making it better. How can we make it better? So this is all about making children and adults feel successful, right? Oh, I'm not the first one to finish. I must not be a good writer. It's not about finishing all the time, and it's not about finishing first all the time. All right. Make reading and writing part of your daily life. I think I've repeated this like 7,000 times by now. When you're reading, find a connection with your characters, with the situations. This is all just part of our daily living. The characters that we read and whatnot. Last one, Way 5. And this is a community wide or worldwide call for action. So, what can we do? What can our communities do? And perhaps maybe the government. What can we do? So, the first thing is find a partner school. I've done this, I've seen this happen in some of the schools I've been. We have a partner school. We visit those partner schools in like rural areas or just, government schools. We would go there, we would have read aloud sessions, we'll have the buddy reading. And then you can have an agreement on how you can do some kind of book swap and then maybe start a book drive. So, your partner school is your best resource for all of this reading aloud, buddy reading, and even the teachers could, buddy read with other teachers in that particular school. For schools, like this is a call for all those schools to reply or to respond for partnership. If a school calls out for, can you be our sister school or can you be our partner school? I think we need to have that service oriented thinking that, hey, this is something that I can do for the community. Let's respond. Let's do this. This is easy. We can do this. We can put this in our schedule. And so this is that having that service and community mindset, right? Our schools is all part of that small community wherever we are. And one of the ones that I found really effective in a way that, the students get involved in it. The students, I saw this in my class and they read aloud, they read with the students in one of our partner schools, and they have that sense of pride, and fulfillment that they were able to help and they were able to reach out. And so get the students involved, in your own schools, in a lot of IB schools and other international schools, respond to this call for partnership. For the community leaders, I guess I love what Ms. Tiagi say yesterday in that talk. She said, let's get to know families. Because when you get to know these families, you understand what they're going through, you know their struggles, you can somehow put these families together, build a strong relationship so that they know how to help each other and reach out to each other. You can gather families, have like a certain spot where you can train, you can show how to do things. And then another thing that can be done is to have a book swap or some kind of a book drive within communities, right? So you have a partner school that's doing that for you, and then you have these small communities doing a book drive and a book swap. So we have all these books going around. And then one of the best suggestions that my husband told me is to have a public library in public parks. And we saw this when we were in Albania. The public park, there is a section there where it is just for books. And, people can just go in, sit, get a book, read, so in these public places where we can somehow have books available, a public library, collect books again, read aloud sessions in small groups within the community. So I know that I belong to a church, and a lot of churches that I have been a part of, they are very happy to share their space. And, can we do it just on Saturday afternoons or whatever, and gather some of the children, some of the adults, have a buddy reading session, a read aloud session. You can do this, ask even maybe for yoga centers or community centers, public parks where you can have small groups again of just small read alouds. So we can use the community spaces, for have all of these sessions of reading and sessions of writing just going around. And I think that's it. That is the end of my presentation.
Yes, and it was really an insightful presentation. And as ma'am, you have a focus upon the reading part, the reading books and reading literature. My first question to you would be like, we have been seeing that after the pandemic, more children are forced towards using their phones or using their laptops for their education. Consequently, which has made them distant from reading their books. What could be like the new normal to make those children again read book in their daily routines? What, according to your experience, it can be a new normal?
Um, I One, first I want to clarify that it's not a bad thing to read on the device, because that is has become our normal now. And I know that there are websites that offer free books. One of them that I know that we use a lot is Storyweaver. .org, I believe. So there's just a lot of free books and for different ages that you can use. So that's okay, because that is one of the best ways we can read right now. That's where the children are. But I still do believe that, we need to set aside. I think as parents, we have a big role to play here. I make sure that my children have a reading time at home. This is your book, this is reading time. You are going to turn off the device and we're going to read. And if you want to encourage children to take up a book, that means you also have to put in that time with them. You have to sit with them, either you read with them, read to them, or I will read with them. Like I have my own book and we're all sitting together and we're reading around. So when the children see that you yourself are doing it, then they will copy. So if that is a routine that we want to establish, we have to make sure that we are consistent and that we are part of it. So
Yes, ma'am. Like as you said that more often we see now the reading platforms, online reading platforms, but as you also do it, that you give a compulsory hour of session for reading books as well. So we don't
yes.
have to like forget reading books if we are on the digital platform till then also. So you said it very rightly. And moving on, like, do you feel that the current education system, we are educating the children fully, that prepares them for the needs of the 21st century?
I am not very aware of the Indian school system, but from what I have seen and the stories that I've heard from my colleagues, there is still a lot of teaching that's going on and little participation. And so, one of the things that I learned from my own writing is that if you are not writing, if you are not reading, and we just keep teaching grammar, and we have workbooks to make sure we are using the correct grammar, we are not practicing it. So, for example, you keep telling the child to ride the bicycle. He keeps looking at the bicycle and you're pointing out the different parts of the bicycle, but he's really not riding it. So, looking at the bicycle and actually riding it is two different things. So, if you want somebody to write, make them write something, a story, a paragraph, a feeling, reply to a message. If you want the student to read, give them a book to read. I see a lot of workbooks that's just focuses on grammar or focusing on how to read, but not actually spending time reading and, relating to the characters. So that is something that we need to do. Children need to actually write, and children need, or adults, right? Like we also need to pick up a pen and a paper and just start writing. So,
Yes, and till now, if I talk about myself, I also my parents constantly tell me to read newspapers or write something. They usually tell me to write something. They
yes.
they usually tell me that whatever happened to you in the whole day, just write it on a notebook. So
There
they
you go.
are like trying to inculcate in me that I should read, I should write regularly. So yes, we should do, as you said, that to make someone read, give them something to read. Yeah,
Yes.
and ma'am, as we are seeing, after the pandemic, there are several changes in every sector. Like if we talk about the working sector, there are things more new, more interactive things are happening. And now, what according to you is the most exciting or the effective learning environment, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic?
Wow, the most exciting is that the entire world has become our learning ground. Everything is online now. Like I can connect to schools in Europe, in America, in Portugal, wherever I want. I could find a sister school or a partner school everywhere in the world, and it's become so easy. So I think that's one of the biggest. Benefits of being on lockdown. It's just everyone seems so close now. And then there's virtual field trips, that we can do. And then, of course, there's a lot more online. We've increased our resources for online. Of course, the next discussion should be, what about those areas that do not have access to the internet, right? So that's the next question that we have. And unfortunately, if there is not much that the government can do to provide for these areas that there's no internet, or no electricity, we can always go back to how we used to do it, which is books. We'll have a public library, we have book swaps, collect books. We can go back to that way of doing things.
Yes, ma'am. And can you share your experience that where innovation was used at its best to accelerate literacy, according to your experience?
Oh, I know. One of the things that I was really appreciative about, innovative ways of literacy, is the rise of YouTube and the rise of these apps where you speak and it will type for you. And it's just mind blowing, because you start thinking about, do we still need to learn to write? If Siri or Alexa can write whatever it is I'm dictating, do I need to learn how to write, right? Like, these are the new discussions for the future. And then, of course, it almost feels like I don't need to write, because I could also just take a video of myself. I could put it on YouTube and people can learn from me, or I can put it on, I can even do a quick tutorial on TikTok, on Instagram, right? Like, this is just such innovative ways that we can now do, but also brings us to thinking about, do we need to write and do we need to read? There are now apps that will read to you, right? Like, I don't want, like, sometimes I feel tired from looking and reading. I want an app that will read to me. And I think these are the biggest ones that just really get me all excited, but also at the same time reflecting on benefits and the consequences of all of this new innovative things in literacy.
Yes, ma'am. And moving further, as we are talking about some innovative ways of literacy, I would like to show you that how Global Dream is working with the 30 hours foundational literacy and numeracy approach. Like we have a literacy material known as Toolkit, which we call it as a toolkit. It is in 13 different Indian languages, which includes English, which it includes Hindi, which includes Kannada, which includes Telugu, and many other languages, Punjabi, Urdu, many other languages. Now, the two other languages, foreign languages, which we are right now working on is Swahili and Spanish. And we, moreover, have a dream of converting these languages, these toolkits, converting them into other Indian languages as well, and the other foreign languages as well, so that we can attain 100% literacy rate in the coming years.
That's
With this, I
wonderful.
would like to share my screen and show you, give you a glimpse about our toolkit.
Yes, please. Yes.
So, ma'am, as you can see in the screen on the screen, that this is our Global Dream toolkit, which is currently I'm showing you the English toolkit. So before starting, we have a pre-test. So basically, we have a pre-test and a post-test, where in the pre-test we get to know the existing knowledge of the learner,
Right.
that what exactly he knows and what on which part we have to work more. And the best part of this book is that one should not be a teacher. It's not compulsory that one should be a teacher, then only he can train the learner. A school going child can also teach the learner. The learner can be the out of the school children, or the learner also can be the underprivileged adult.
Yes.
So we use some pictorial representations and the power of phonic. So as turning the page, now you can see there are three images on the top left corner. There are three images. Like one is violin, the other one is apple, and the third one is the nest. So what we do, we don't teach like V for violin, A for apple, N for nest. We try to use the power of sound. So like we ask the learner that, can you please tell us that what is the first sound of violin? So he will say that yes, the first sound of violin starts v. So the first sound of violin is v, and we also have a method that ask, wait, don't tell. Like what generally teachers do is that they are very eager to answer.
Yes.
Like they ask the question, and if the student is not able to answer, they're much eager to answer that no, this is the right answer. But what we do is that we ask the learner, we'll stop there, we'll wait for him to answer, and if he's not able to answer, we'll not answer, we'll tell him to try it again, try and try until you succeed.
Yes.
Yes. So now we'll ask him that what is the first sound of apple. So he will say app. apple, apple. First sound of apple is a. We'll say very good. Move ahead and tell us the what is made in the third picture. So he will say that I can see a nest in the third picture, and then we'll ask tell us that what is the first sound of nest. So he will say the first sound of nest is n. So now we'll tell them that you have three sounds, v and n. So now combine these three sounds and tell us that what word comes out of it. So he will do v and initially he will come out with the word van. That he will say these three sounds tell brings out a word known as van. So this is some an innovative idea which we at Global Dream have for the foundational literacy and numeracy. Like we use a different method, and after like we work on similarly with cat. That car's first sound is k, apple's first sound is a, and tap's first sound is t. So they combines and make cat, k at cat. So this initially, ma'ams, build a sense of we can say confidence in them that they now are starting learning things, and which is much easier than the ways which of education which we are having since years. That takes to make the learner literate in 3 years. Now what we are doing, we are making the learner literate in just 30 hours. And after teaching them from this book, we do a post test also, where we get to know that what was his existing knowledge and what knowledge he has gained after this learning from this toolkit. So this is something which we call it as the toolkit. And moving further, I would have like to have a final comment from you that what should be the education in the coming next 100 years,
Wow.
or what
No,
is the next 100 years of education?
another 2 years, another 5 years after the pandemic, it's really so, it's such an unknown of what could happen in 2 years or in 3 years. In a year, we actually don't know. What I know is that we are quick to learn. I mean, I saw a lot of teachers, switch from face to face to learning everything online. My students now are so comfortable with what we're doing online. It's just quick and we learn and we have adapted to this kind of new normal. And what is education for the next 5 years, for the next 100 years? I don't know. I would like it to be more where children are creating and where learners are active part of their learning, where they are given a chance to discover for themselves. But I think most importantly, where we are all thinking about what can we do to contribute now. So if we are educating, if we are teaching, but all of this teaching is just becomes so selfish in a way, like to get a good job, or but without thinking what can we do for our community. I think that's a sad way to go forward, especially after seeing the pandemic and how much is needed from all of us. I think that's something that we should be inculcating in school. What can we do with our learning? What can we create to help out, or to do better? So that's what I'm hoping education will be in the future.
Yes, ma'am. And I hope people like you, people like us, and other like-minded organizations, the people from CSR, the people from government, we can come together in scaling up the literacy, and let's hope to have a good shaped future generation with the power of literacy with them. So with this, we would like to move towards the end of the session of this detox. To learn more about Global Dream 30 Hours Foundational Literacy and Numeracy Approach, you can visit www.globaldream.guru, or you can also WhatsApp us on 740-840-6000. With this, I would like to thank Ms. Loris for coming onto our session and telling us such wonderful things, giving us such an insightful presentation, and telling us about the power of reading, power of writing as well. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for participating in the session and accepting our invitation.
This has been really wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And with this, I would like to also thank our audience for their support. Thank you and have a nice day.